Well, let's look at your life. You know, after you would have left Chubkey, after you would have built your home, and now you've been considered to be a part of the force now.
Yes.
You moved to Nassau. You left your home with your brother. Well, you sold it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your life after that. How did you come to apply to be a police? Why?
Well, like I said, I always had in the back of my mind, I wanted to serve community.
Right.
And I believe because of my father's trailblazing as a teacher,
yes,
and provide service to country.
Mm-hmm.
And Chubkey in those days, I was the youngest person on the development of Chubkey. It's called Crown Colony Club then. And they gave you 3 or 4 days off per month.
Mm-hmm.
And I would come to Nassau, and of course I stayed with Charity when I came.
Yes.
Charity was then living on Blue Hill Road, right next to Government House.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I said, let me go up and I get tired of this life in Chubkey. Let me go up and do the examination for joining the force.
Mm-hmm.
I went up, didn't think anything about it. 6 weeks went by, and I got this call.
Yes.
Come to Nassau. You have passed the examination to join the force.
Wow.
So one weekend I came up. I didn't say anything to my bosses at the time at Chubkey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I came to Nassau, and they said, look, you go back to Chubkey, pack up your clothes, say, but let me put you through the ropes for where you go. So I drove in. I used to rent a scooter, Lambretta scooter.
Okay.
Someone on Wolf Road, one Mr. Morse.
Mm-hmm.
And as I drove into headquarters, the deputy commissioner, I didn't know he was deputy commissioner, he was revising out.
Mm-hmm.
And my Lambretta scooter ran into the back of the car.
Wow.
So he came out. I was only 17 and a half, 17 and maybe 4 months. He said, youngster, where are you going? I said, sir, and I was trembling.
Mm-hmm.
I said, sir, they asked me to come up to join the force.
Yes.
I said, I am sorry. I didn't see your car coming out. I couldn't tell him he was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I apologize, sir. I said, there's no damages to either of the scooter or the car.
Mm-hmm.
I say, I apologize. He said, well, look, youngster, if you want to be a policeman, you can't be running into people's car. That was my first experience with a policeman, and of all persons, the deputy commissioner.
Oh my gosh.
So when I got up to the clerk office, who was Vincent Shelton, he just died last year. He was the recruitment officer.
Yes.
He said, you're half an hour late. So he tell me what happened. I said, well, I run into the deputy commissioner car. That's why I'm late.
Yes.
So he said, boy, you don't want to be with policemen. You run into the deputy commissioner car. So he said, stand up under that. There's a height requirement.
Wow.
You had to be 5'8".
Really?
But I was only 5'7"3/4. He said, you ever knew that song in Long Island called Tiptoe? Heel and toe? Say, well, you tiptoe. So he said, by the time you finish this training in 6 months, you'll be 5'8".
Yes.
That's how I got
Wow.
met the requirements. I went back to Chubkey and I gave notice, and they didn't want me to leave.
Wow.
I ended up being the head waiter at 17 and a half.
Wow.
I was in charge of the dining room.
Wow.
And I had several other waiters under me. many years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because of the trust that the people had in me. I was responsible for all the checks, all the funds, and turning them in every night.
Wow.
And therefore, they didn't want me to leave.
Wow.
And so I came, joined the force, and the rest is history. But having joined the force, while my colleagues graduated headquarters, while my friends were partying, there were many nightclubs over the hill, the Banana Boat, the Yellow Bird, and all of that. They don't have that these days. My colleagues who joined with me, we call them squad mates.
Yes.
A lot of them used to go out. I sought to improve my education.
Yes.
They had what you call evening classes, the University of the West Indies.
Okay.
And I went to classes. Judge Emmanuel of Sadabe, he died a couple of years ago. He was one of the lecturers there. And Tim McCartney, who just died, I think it was last week or so, he would taught me psychology. And so I did contract law, company law, and psychology.
Okay.
And that but I did that after, in my spare time, after I get off work.
Yes.
Because in those days, you couldn't tell your sergeant that you was doing classes. They wouldn't give you time off.
Wow.
I don't know for what reason or the other, but whenever I could go, I went. And I graduated, and that was very beneficial to me as a career policeman. Psychology, knowing how to deal with people.
Yes.
And of course, company and contract law, which helped me immensely.
Yes.
And then, of course, I continued with that. I went to Atlanta University. I wanted to go to, I didn't have the requirements to get into Atlanta University, but I went through the police department in Atlanta. They made representation to Atlanta University, saying I was a aiming police officer. And I went in and did some management courses at Atlanta University through Atlanta Police Department.
Wow.
So I had that all under my belt.
And this is at what age when you?
This would have been, I would have been probably about 25, 26 or so.
Okay.
I would have had about married, but I sacrificed and went into summer with summer courses. Atlanta provided, university provided courses for the officers of the Atlanta Police Department. And so I was lucky enough to get into the courses.
So at the time, were you a constable, or you were
Yes,
you were still a constable?
I was a constable.
Okay, that's the first stage, right?
First stage, yes.
Okay. So when you came over, you went to night school at the University of West Indies.
Yes.
And that was from age 17 to 25, or
about age 17 to about I would say about age 19. As I graduated, the first station I worked at was Sutton Police Station on Market Street.
Yes.
And I lived in room number 12 upstairs. And I lived in that room until I got married.
Okay.
Out of that room.
Wow.
And I got married out of that room. My wedding was 6 a.m. in the morning because there was another young lady I was checking down the street from the station. So I couldn't say I would have it later on in the day.
Yeah. Oh,
I didn't want no disturbance at the church.
Oh, I thought you had a little bit of lover in you too back then, eh?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
You call yourself playing the field.
Okay. We'll talk about that. So you okay? It was funny. But just one question. But at what age did you get married?
I was at 20.
20.
My wife was 19.
Okay, she was 19, you were 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, you had 2 years in the force. You graduated, then you went at age 19 to do your studies,
Yeah.
and you finished around.
Well, like I say, I did this summer courses. I
Right.
took vacation.
Right.
And so every year, I thought I should do was my own initiative to do a course to add to my resume.
Right.
And I think it paid off
Yes.
because with 4 years in the force, I got promoted to corporal.
Okay.
8 years, 9 years, I got promoted as a sergeant.
Okay.
And I wouldn't call that rapid promotion, but it was fairly, I think, regular promotion because of my own initiative trying to improve myself educationally.
Yes.
Because moving from Long Island, the all-age school didn't provide, as far as I was concerned, enough qualifications if I wanted to excel in the organization. I never wanted to retire as a constable.
Yes. Wow.
And therefore, I went on to become an inspector. And then while I was an inspector, I was then, this was during the drug era, when...
80s?
Yeah, this fella who he hoisted a Colombian flag in Normandy, and it was the same time the Bahamas government signed an agreement with the Bahamas to develop what we call a rapid drug squad.
Who did you sign it with?
The Bahamas government signed this with the U.S.
With the U.S. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called Operation BAT today.
Operation BAT.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a commission of inquiry at that time with Sir Lyndon Pindley.
I remember those videos.
Yes, and there were several allegations about Bahamian officials being involved in proceeds. I don't know if they were ever proven, but there are many. We had an assistant commissioner who was dismissed from the force for that, and a senior officer from the Defense Force.
Yes.
And but at that time, I was asked to go into the drug squad, into the Operation BAT as an inspector. So I was a team leader.
Okay.
And therefore, I spent 2 years. That was one of the highlights. It was very dangerous, and my wife said, "Look, if you going into that thing, you better insure yourself.
Wow.
Because if you go down, I want to be secure." So I took out some private insurance because you had to ride helicopters, and you had one of the helicopters crash.
Wow.
And one of our Bahamian, I think he was a sergeant at the time, Ferguson, he had to swim for his life because it crashed in the ocean. And several other persons. I think there may have been some casualties in that, but he was lucky. And then from there I went to Government House as the aide-de-camp, responsible for the security of the Governor General.
Okay.
Sir Gerald Cash, who taught me all of what I know today. He was a diplomat par excellence, and was one of the very, very able Governor Generals we have had. He was a president of the Senate, and of course he, when he retired, the highlight of my attachment to Government House for 4 years was to travel with him to visit Her Majesty the Queen at Buckingham Palace. And he had a private luncheon with Her Majesty the Queen, and I had a private luncheon with the Secretary to the Queen.
Okay.
And she had spoke to us both during that visit. and then we came back home. He retired, and then I left Government House and was posted to Central Police Station and worked there until I became the commanding officer of Central Station.
Okay.
And then I went on a course at the United Kingdom. My first overseas course, I was an assistant superintendent then, called Bramshill Staff College.
Yes.
They trained senior officers from all over the world. And I got that training under my belt, came back and became a superintendent and a acting superintendent when the Queen made her final visit to the Bahamas. I was then the commanding officer of internal security, responsible for internal security matters and parades, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And I left there and went to New Providence District, where I became superintendent of New Providence overall, seeing all the police stations in New Providence. And then I became assistant commissioner in charge of Family Islands and New Providence. And of course, while as superintendent, I enrolled in a course in the UK to do my master's in policing and public order.
Yes.
And then I was sent on a course, creeping up to 30 years service, fast track, and was planning on leaving the force as assistant commissioner. I didn't think there was any more room for me to excel.
Okay.
Because we had a young commissioner, and deputy commissioners, only 2 spaces to get to the top. And at 30 years service, I was giving my notice to leave the force.
Yes.
When I was asked by someone in authority in the government who said, because I was offered a job by Sir Albert Miller, who's from Long Island, in Grand Bahama.
Yes.
He knew I was leaving, and I believe he told the Minister of National Security, who was Mr. Farquharson,
Yes.
That I was coming to work for him. And so Deputy Prime Minister at that time, he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I finished my 30 years. I want my pension, and I'm going to start another career." And of course, he said, "No, you can't go anywhere because we are thinking about you to run this outfit." I said, "What outfit?" I said, "I finished with the force. I finished 30 years."
Yes.
And he said, "No, man," said, "we organized you to go on a course, commissioner's course, in the UK. There were only 3 Bahamians at that time, 2 at that time, who was on the commissioner's course. Albert Miller, who he was deputy commissioner, but he never made commissioner. But it was the best thing he ever did was to go to Grand Bahama, because he became a multi-millionaire at Grand Bahama, working for the Port Authority.
Wow.
And then it was Alonzo Butler, who came back and never made commissioner. So I told him, I said, "Well, there are 2 persons who went before me, never became commissioner. What caused you to convince me that I said, "We have a commissioner, he's a young man." He said, "Oh, never worry about that. We want you to run this outfit." And of course, I came back and did the course, and out of 35 officers from around the world, I came 6th on the course.
Wow.
And these were all, most of the officers were from the UK and Ireland, Australia, some from Africa, Hong Kong, which was then a colony of the UK, and I came 6th. It was a really great achievement.
Wow.
And
that's excellent.
And then I never served as deputy commissioner. I was asked to be commissioner. But I was well prepared, well trained,
Wow.
and I served at 8 years.
8 years as commissioner.
Yeah.
Wow, it's almost 2 terms of different under different parties.
And I served two prime ministers.
Okay.
Yeah. Hubert Ingram, who appointed me, and then Prime Minister Christie, both nationalists. And it's difficult enough to serve one prime minister, but to serve 2
Yeah.
is an achievement.
Yes.
And I drew back on my psychology courses at the university.
Wow.
So you got to have a lot of psychology
Yes.
to work. And of course, you do your job.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
That's the bottom line.
Definitely. Definitely.
And so I reached the pinnacle of my career,
Mm-hmm.
having retired in 2008. Hubert Ingram then came back as prime minister, and when he came back the second time, he said, I said, well, sir, I think I'm going to retire. I've finished my 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, where you going? I just came back. I said, but you have if you remember, it was a story that was floating around that he was double dipping, that he was getting his pension,
Yes.
being previously as
I remember that story.
You remember that story?
Yeah. Yeah.
I said,
as the previous prime minister and this one. Yeah.
So he and I had a conversation. I said, you have your pension in your back pocket. I said, I want mine.
Yes.
So I said, that is why I'm leaving. I said, if you reach 40 years in the public service, your pension don't grow
anymore. Okay.
So,
Right.
but he was a great leader,
Mm-hmm.
and you could depend on his word.
Yes.
And so I retired, and then he offered me a job. He said, well, you're too young to retire. I was 58.
Oh, okay.
He said, now, how can you help us? I said, well, you have any place overseas? He said, you name the place. He said, you want to go to China? I said, me? I said, to hell with that. I don't want to go to China. I wanted to be in close proximity. By then I had 5 grandchildren.
Yeah, you want to be close. Right.
I said, do you have anything in 2-3 hours away from Nassau?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, you name the place. So he said, well, let's agree on Canada. And we agreed, and I said, wind down. I ended up in the UK. I didn't want to go back to the UK.
Right.
But I believe he boycotted my wife. Knowing how he operates.
Yes.
My wife has not admitted that to me today. When I came home and told her about it,
Yes.
she said, that's where I want to go.
Wow.
So, half of the job was finished.
Yes.
But we
You were
had
in the UK.
yeah,
Okay.
I went as High Commissioner, Ambassador to UK, 10 countries. I had to visit, and had a wonderful 5 years there.
Wow.
That's where I put my diplomatic skills to great use that I learned with Sir Gerald Cash.
Wow.
But it's been
like,
a wonderful career
wow.
as Commissioner.
It's very amazing, when you talk about your level of progression.
Yes.
From young straight up, it shows that you had
The determination.
Yeah, determination,
To
just
progress.
that drive to want to always elevate and not in a opportunistic way, but more so in just you wanting to see yourself elevating in a healthy manner. You didn't backstab anybody.
No.
You went about it the right way.
And I could have gone out partying and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I did my share of socializing, but I knew how far to go.
Yes.
And therefore, a lot of my colleagues didn't make it too far.
Right.
Because they chose another path.
They chose, yeah.
I'm not saying it was the wrong path, but that's what they chose.
Right.
I had a choice.
Yes.
I chose a path that I thought I would benefit.
Yes.
In the long run.
No, I think you had an excellent career.
Yeah.
And by far, many will not and have not travel and go as far as you went, because not many people could be commissioner.
No.
No doubt about that. It's only a handful, right? I mean, how many commissioners have there been?
It's 7. It's
7. See?
I am the 4th Bahamian commissioner.
Yes.
And it's an exclusive club.
Yeah. Wow.
And we have a sworn on what I learned on my commissioner's course.
Yes.
Not all commissioners, Bahamian commissioners, have had the commissioner's course. And as commissioner, you must build a succession planning to train people to take over from you.
Wow.
I did that. When I left, there were 4 officers who I sent on the commissioner's course. Wow. I was the only one, other than the previous 2, Sir Albert Miller and Alonzo Butler. He went 15 years after him, and I went 15 years after Butler. But I thought to take another approach to modern management and train officers to take over from me.
Yeah.
And the country would be that more
equipped,
beneficial.
Yep. I think that's wisdom,
and that's a leader's job.
Yeah, it is
to provide succession planning.
To relinquish to the right people, and
you're already commissioner.
Yes.
No matter how much training you give other officers, it's going to only help the country and help
Correct.
to do the job. It's not a one-man job.
Yeah, no, I don't know where it comes off. Where a lot of
Bahamians
people don't believe
like
in that.
To do that.
Yeah, they don't. They're like, I got to keep you down.
Yeah.
I mean,
they close the door on you.
Just like how you spoke about in your earlier days.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell your boss that you were going to school because they would have.
Oh, you
blackball you. They would have stopped you from progressing and I would say God would have definitely blessed you, provided you many opportunities. And it's obvious you had favor in your life.
And in addition to the good master looking after his own,
yes,
I had some senior officers who really looked after me. One of them was Paul Thompson. You hear his name called on the radio all the time. Was a retired assistant commissioner. Keith Mason,
right,
who ended up being deputy commissioner. He was like a father to me. Miller, he was an assistant commissioner, and several other persons. And because I did my job,
yes,
and I never tried to be unfair to members of the public. If I didn't have any evidence on you, I go. I'll catch you at some point.
Yes.
And I always told my officers, do not ever lie or tell stories on persons to get a conviction on somebody. You go according to the evidence.
Yes.
You don't have any evidence, don't charge. Why do you must charge somebody or disadvantage some persons because you have the power? That makes no good sense to me.
Yes.
And everywhere I go over the hill,
yes,
people stop me and say, and career officers too, said, you gave me a chance. And I want to thank you. You was always fair, but fine.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
All right. So now you would have had an amazing career. As commissioner. You served 8 years
And the highlights.
And yep, in that position, and then you would have decided to end your career at 40 years of service.
Yes.
In the police force, and after that you would have then be a high commissioner. High commissioner for the UK.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you about the difference between that and ambassador.
Okay.
In fact, they're one.
You were ambassador as well, right?
Yes, I was ambassador to France,
Okay.
Germany, Brussels, High Commissioner. The difference between a High Commissioner in a Commonwealth country and an ambassador is that a High Commissioner is a person who is appointed as an ambassador in the British Commonwealth. They call them High Commissioners.
Okay.
For example, my colleague, the present Governor General, we went away at the same time. He went as ambassador to Washington.
Okay.
I went as High Commissioner to London. But they're both ambassadors.
Oh, okay.
But in the British Commonwealth, rather than calling our diplomats at the highest level ambassadors, they are called High Commissioners. Okay? But they do pretty much the same work.
Okay.
But I want to go swinging back to the highlights of the career. I was honored by Her Majesty Queen. I got a Queen's Police Medal when I was commissioner. And of course, the highlight of working at Government House with the Governor General and being the guard commander for Her Majesty the Queen on her last visit to the Bahamas. I also was responsible for organizing this popular section in the force called Urban Renewal.
Okay.
And that came along during the first term of Prime Minister Christie. When I went to see him a month before the elections, I went to, because as commissioner, responsible for his security.
Yes.
And a month before the elections, I wanted to let him know about the security arrangements as leader of the opposition. And he said, Commissioner, when I become Prime Minister in another month, I want you to deepen the process of community policing. And so I already had community policing going.
Yes.
As part of my mandate, I selected 10 officers and selected his own area to do an experimental diagnosis of the Centerville constituency. And that was the first group of officers that I appointed in the urban renewal as it is now. It mushroomed to about, before I left, to about 7 groups of urban renewal teams in the Bahamas before I retired. And it's really what urban renewal is. It's a deeper understanding of community policing. It's a branch of community policing, serving the whole man, children, families, and trying to steer them from a way of life, as far as crime is concerned.
Yes.
But it's an excellent program if it's run properly. But I picked that up from being exposed the training when I was being trained as a commissioner.
Okay.
And in fact, certain parts of the UK had similar programs under different names. And therefore, I thought it was suitable for the Bahamas. But you had to tailor make it to fit the community of the Bahamas.
Right.
But there's some of the highlights. There are many others. But and to have fun. You see, when you're a leader in the and running an organization like a discipline organization, you have to lead with good common sense. You cannot be successful unless you bring the community with you.
Yes.
And you have to be fair with the community and be a servant not only to the community, but the organization, the persons who you manage.
Yes. Yes.
You see, being a commissioner is not a one-man job. It's a team. I was wonderfully blessed with a good deputy commissioner and 5 or 6 other assistant commissioners. And I tasked them to help me run the force. And therefore, we got together 6:30 every morning. And within an hour and a half, we would have done a day's work. We could discuss our crime, discuss our strategies within that hour. If we had to see some officers who had problems, we addressed those problems. And I used the Police Staff Association, which some people claim to be a union, but they're not a union.
Yes.
They used them to help me to address the welfare of your people. You cannot run an organization unless you have happy people. And therefore, some people believe that because I'm the boss, you got to hammer and kill the subordinates under you. That don't make any good sense to me.
Right.
Because you would be doing yourself a disservice if you do that. You got to keep your people happy.
Yes, sir.
And they will produce for you. I tell you that. And therefore, that there's some of the highlights I had in my career as commissioner. There are many, but there are some of
the main ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it must be nice to have met the Queen and to be her security.
Yes.
Right. While she was here doing her last visit to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
How did you feel meeting the Queen?
Well, she is like you and I are talking. She is a very gracious lady, and she put you at ease. That's the skill not too many people have.
Yeah.
Because they have power. You don't. When you talk to her.
Yes.
In fact, we sailed from Nassau to Andros on the HMS Britannia, which was her yacht, official yacht. And we sat around the table and we had lunch together and we talked just like you and I are talking. And she put you at ease. She said, Inspector, you are working with my Governor General, because the Governor General represent her in the Bahamas. I said yes, and we have had a normal conversation, and she, especially when I went back as a diplomat, High Commissioner, and that would lead me into the question of when I retired and was appointed High Commissioner to London.
So you were discussing the process of being selected a High Commissioner and how the country had to select you or say, I agree with your selection as a government before you would have been accepted.
Well, I think the process, as I understand it, and under the Geneva Convention, which governs the whole question of diplomacy in the world on the diplomatic service, the nominating country is your country.
Yes.
Who nominates a candidate for ambassadorship or high commissioner, as it is in the British Commonwealth. The receiving country has to, through its own clandestine investigation, will make a determination whether you are a suitable person to represent your country at that particular level, and whether or not they would cooperate in receiving you and giving you the diplomatic privileges under the Geneva Convention as you are supposed to on your appointment.
Yes.
Once you arrive in that country, in the case, my case in London, you had what you call the Marshal of the Diplomatic Service. Who's the person who run the diplomatic service in the United Kingdom? The Marshal come by, have a chat with you, and then make an appointment for you to present your, what you call, credentials.
Yes.
That would be the letters of appointment to Her Majesty the Queen. And of course, the Prime Minister as well. But Her Majesty the Queen is the main person that receive your papers. And thereafter, you are legally able to represent your country in that particular country, or in UK, in my case, I was.
Yes.
And in the case of the person who's going to Washington, is called an ambassador, and the present Governor General, the Most Honorable C.A. Smith, was ambassador to Washington while I was High Commissioner to London.
Okay.
On my appointment as High Commissioner to London, I was also charged with the responsibility to present credentials to the President of France, President of Germany, the President of Brussels, and of course the International Monetary Authority, which is the authority that governs ships in the world.
Okay.
The Bahamas, as you may know, at that time was the third largest ship registry in the world.
Wow.
And I ended up serving as chairman of the 134 countries that make up Category C of the IMO, International Monetary Organization. And they set down international laws, and at that time, piracy of ships traveling from the Indian Ocean and other parts of the world had a problem with piracy off the coast of Africa. They would board these big ships, oil tankers, freighters, commandor them, take them into port, and demand millions of dollars from the owners.
Wow.
And therefore, we worked very diligently behind the scene as diplomats to iron out a protocol and provide security, asking other bigger countries to provide escort services for the ships that carry the Bahamian flag, who must come through the straits towards the west. So there's some of the highlights. And then, of course, you have the Commonwealth Secretariat in the UK. There's a clearinghouse, if you will, or a secretariat that manage all of the various instruments of diplomacy in terms of strategies that countries would take on addressing issues of various countries. And there are many meetings you have to attend in order to make a contribution and represent the Bahamas on those particular committees.
Okay.
What are the highlights in my 5 years while I was in the UK? One of those, there were many. I was there, my wife and I, we had 3 or 4 receptions a year that Her Majesty the Queen puts on, and the diplomatic service have to attend. And she is such an amazing woman that she know you from these activities, and she stand up and talk to you about the Bahamas, what's going on in the Bahamas. And in fact, she would have the answers before she speak to you.
Wow.
Because she is well informed. And therefore you would give her a brief. And then she, on several occasions, other members of the royal family, I was there when she celebrated her 60th anniversary. And we, as the diplomatic service, part of the diplomatic service, we had many discourse. And of course, to arrange visits by cabinet ministers, senior officials of the government passing through London, the Prime Minister, and when Prince William got married, I had to make pretty much all the arrangements for the Prime Minister's visit, who was a special guest of Her Majesty the Queen, to that wedding. And of course, in I think it was 2012 or thereabout, we have the Commonwealth Heads of Government, where every, I think it's 2 years, that Commonwealth heads meet. And the Queen is normally, who's head of the Commonwealth. Now it's Prince Charles. The Queen has passed that on to Prince Charles. And I attended as the deputy delegate for the Bahamas to the Commonwealth Heads of Government, and which was held in Perth, Australia.
Wow.
And spent that 10 days, my wife and I spent down there. That was a very special highlight. And of course, went to Vanuatu. It is a place an island in the Pacific. And they had a very high level meeting of the ACP countries. That's the Asian, Pacific, and Caribbean countries. Come together to determine matters as it relates to finance and a whole range of matters that affects small countries, and develop strategies on how you will address them among the big boys in the world.
Wow.
So that 5 years of diplomatic service in the UK was a great experience. I trained there to become commissioner. So going back to the UK was no big thing to me. I knew many of my colleagues who were chief constables of various forces, and therefore the relationship, it made my stay that much easier.
Yes. Wow.
So
I mean, you being around so many major delegates and presidents and persons of higher positions around the world, it must have required a lot of focus and attention and
No doubt about it. You have to be well read. You must know what's going on in the country, because the presidents who you're presenting credentials to, they will ask you. And you have to be up to date, because I had at my disposal several junior persons who were career persons in the diplomatic service, and so we met on a regular basis. And if I was going on a trip, for example, presenting credentials to the president of France, they will provide a brief for me, or Germany for that matter. And of course, all those Eastern Caribbean Eastern countries, we get together, their ambassadors or high commissioners in London, and because I played golf, we had a golf group, we had a tennis group, just to, and through those sporting events and activities,
forge relationships,
no doubt about it, and it make your job that much more easier. And therefore, while I'm not a great golfer, I pretend as though I was good. But it's a great hobby, and we through playing golf, I got many problems solved while we are on the course.
For the government, for the
Bahamas. Yes, for the government, yes. Yeah, because remember now, not only are you interacting with persons at the highest level from around the world, you have your own citizens that live
over there
and work in the various parts of the world and in the UK as well. There are a whole lot of Bahamians who have moved to the UK and live there, and therefore we had reception once a year, Independence, and that's when you see them. And of course they call you with various problems. You have Bahamians who get stranded all over the world, and they call you, and you got to have a listening ear and provide services. Sometimes they get robbed, sometimes they have various complaints. They lose their tickets, you got to try and arrange to get them back home. And so whatever problems they have, you as the High Commissioner or the Ambassador must be the solving point to address their problem. Because you represent the Prime Minister and the government of the Bahamas.
Wow, that was a very heavy task.
Yeah, it's a great experience.
And you were well trained.
Yes, I thought being commissioner, I had was a great background, and working at a government house. Like I say, provided me with a lot of skills in order to help me. Before I went, a very able diplomat who had served as High Commissioner before, Sir Arthur Folks, he briefed me before I went. And that made my job pretty much much more easier when I got there. The Bahamas High Commission is in a place in London similar to Lightfoot Key, the Lightfoot Key of London. And of course, the residence is right next door. So it was very easy when it's snowing and cold, that from your residence right next door, you can go to work. So it's I think the government was very wise many years ago to have bought that property. That property is one of the most valuable piece of property that the Bahamas has internationally. It's valued, when I left, at £16,000.
16 million pounds.
16 million pounds.
We
Wow.
bought it from the Zimbabwean government many years ago for, I think it was 3 million pounds. But it increased in value.
Yes, yes. Wow, that's
But
a
it
lot
was
of,
a great investment.
yeah. So it's not like it would increase more.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a wise idea to get rid of it. As long as you have a country, you will have to have a diplomatic home and high commission
Yes, yes.
in London.
But when you speak, it's just amazing how many things are going on behind the scenes in running a country and to ensuring that it's safe and it has its allies and
That's right.
it's amazing.
And when you become an independent country, you have to, you're on international stage. You have to, the Bahamas as a country, you say you want to be with the big boys, so you gotta, all these appointments must come. And it comes with a price. Taxpayers must be prepared to fund all of these organs of the United Nations, high commissioners, ambassadors around the world, if you want to be on world stage.
Wow.
So you,
I wouldn't
countries.
even imagine what the budget is on an annual basis for all of that.
Oh yeah, it's very expensive.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you would have now completed that post, and after that, where did your life take you?
Came back home. The Christie government asked me to serve with the urban renewal, and I thought I needed a break. Being away from family for 5 years.
Yes.
I thought I would take a break. And then in 2016, the Ministry of National Security had assembled a team of 18 persons to look into the question of establishing a parole system for the Bahamas.
Okay.
It was funded by the IDB, International Development Bank. And it was a $345,000 grant to the Bahamas to do a study and make recommendations. The Minister of National Security at that time was Bernard Nottage.
Yes.
The Honorable Bernard Nottage. And his people called me and asked me if I would chair the group of 18. And I really had no interest in going to do any work after I finished the diplomatic service. I wanted to retire and quietly, and by that time my wife and I had built a little homestead in Harbour Island.
Okay.
And we wanted to quietly spend quality time with the grandchildren. And so I told the Honorable Bernard Nottage that I would think about it.
Yes.
And I called him back in 3 days. I said, well, who are the persons on the committee? That will determine whether I'm willing to work with them.
Yes.
And he said, your deputy will be Archbishop Gomez and Mr. Patrick Paul, who was head of the Assemblies of God. And so then he named them. I said, well, I'll serve as chairman.
Yes.
And he said, I give you a caveat though. You must produce the study and the report within 6 months. That was in 2016.
Wow.
That was a year before the elections, because the elections was held in 2017. And it's the same year we had this major hurricane, September, Joaquin.
Yes, Joaquin.
And we had to visit
5 countries. I headed a team to Canada. Archbishop Gomez headed a team to Florida. Patrick Paul headed a team to Trinidad. The QC Wayne Monroe and the Burroughs, Reverend Burroughs from BFM, headed a team to Jamaica.
Okay.
And all of what we gathered, we came back to the table and we made a determination what of all those visits and studies will be a good fit for the Bahamas. Because you couldn't very well go to Canada and adopt wholesale
Yes, very true.
their system to fit the Bahamas. That didn't make any sense. It wouldn't fit the culture. We don't have the resources. It was all part of the IDB in partnership with the government at that time to bring about reform at the Department of Corrections.
Yes.
And making the changes from a prison system to one of correction services.
Okay.
That take a lot of training. We had talked about training, housing. How do you make recommendations to better the institution? How do you try and change the minds of the persons who work there through training so that you can't use the same approach as you used in prison to say governing a prison to one of corrections.
Yeah.
And therefore, there was a whole lot of interworking with the senior officers at the Department of Corrections, the families of the victims of crime up there who are incarcerated. We had to get ideas from them and listen to them, provide a listening ear. And all of that was an informed visit and walk the prison compound, and all of that was to inform the recommendations that we would make.
Okay.
Therefore, we had great persons like Wayne Monroe who helped us with framing the report, Archbishop Gomez, who had experience in producing many other reports and studies, and therefore, with the budget that we had, we only used about 50% of the budget. So we were able to produce the report within 6 months, the timeline that the minister gave, and that report is still pending by the government. The current present government said they have accepted the report, and we did a whole lot of work. The members did a whole lot of work.
Wow.
We met twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, mapping out and examining the processes to inform our recommendations for the parole system.
Right.
We are one of the few countries in the Caribbean that do not have a parole system. And we are always behind the 8 ball. I don't know why.
Wow.
But so one day it will come about.
So what is a parole system, if you don't mind?
Parole system is a system that if a person who breach the criminal justice system and is sentenced, you must spend 60% of your time in prison, and then you can apply for parole for the rest of your time.
Okay.
For example, if you were sentenced to 30 years for whatever offense it is, you have to spend 60% of that, and the rest of the time you can spend on parole, supervised parole.
Okay.
Okay, and that is, you go out on parole, and you have parole officers who go by and check on you to make sure if you're a drug addict or used to taking dope, you're in a parole system can make rules to say that that individual must stay away from a drug house or be free of alcohol and that kind of stuff. And the parole officer could check on you any time of the day. If you breach the rules, then you're taken back to prison and you serve the rest of your time.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's all about.
Okay.
It happened all over the world.
Yes. Yeah.
But
yes, it's less taxing on the.
yeah, and it released persons because the Department of Corrections is the one agency. It's the one hotel that cannot refuse customers.
Right. Yes.
Everybody who the court set up, they got to make space for them.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
so
becoming overwhelming.
yeah,
The system is overwhelmed.
they could never say, "Well, I'm overcrowded today. I can't accept you." There's no such thing.
Yes.
But they're overcrowded because the current accommodations there only was built originally to house 800 prisoners. They've now got about 1,800. 700 of them.
Wow, that's about double and more.
Yeah, 700 of them are not tried for anything.
Really?
They're on remand.
Wow.
So that's the highest population in the Jamaica. When we did our study, only have 340 prisoners on remand. They got 4 million people.
Wow.
So yeah, parole
says a lot about our system.
Yeah, our system. We need to change the system, and of course, we have to, of course, invest in the Department of Corrections, and they're doing a magnificent job in what the resources that are provided by the government.
Yes, yes.
They're trying to improve the quarters, trying to eliminate the slop buckets. So. It's a big job, though, but it'll take a long time to address the problems.
I guess no one should try your best to stay away from that.
Oh yeah, that ain't no place to go. Now, that brings me to the next subject. I don't know where you want to go from there. That was a job that lasted for 6-7 months. And of course, when I finished that job, the minister said, "Look, you did such a good job with this.
Yes.
We're giving you another job." I said, "Look, man, I ain't looking for no job."
Yes.
So when I presented with the report, he presented me with a letter.
Wow.
Appointing me to be a member of the Police Service Commission.
Okay.
Now, what is the Police Service Commission?
What is that?
Under the Constitution, the Police Service Commission is a organization that deals with police promotions, police discipline, and of course appointments at the very senior level.
Okay.
And pensions. All of those things come through the Police Service Commission for approval.
Okay.
And therefore, there are 3 members that make up a chairman and 2 members. I'm one of the members.
Okay.
The Police Service Commission. And that's another job that require stable hands. And so we work very closely. It's an independent organization. We deal with the matters that are sent us without any interference at all. And because of our experience, we make the necessary recommendations.
Okay.
And to the government. Then, of course, I'm still a member, just being appointed for another 3 years. Last year I was asked to chair the Rehabilitation of Offenders Committee. In my humble opinion, the Rehabilitation of Offenders Committee is one of those committees that are most important in rehabilitation of offenders coming out of that place. 90% of those incarcerated will come back out. They will live near you. They will live near me. And all over the Bahamas. So therefore, having served their time,
yes,
the state has an obligation to reward them with their clean police record. They've lived up to their end of the bargain, and therefore the state has an obligation to make them whole again. Carrying a police record is like an albatross around your neck. If you have a police record, everywhere you go, somebody say, you can't travel.
Yes.
You can't get a bank loan. You can't get a job.
Can't get a job, yeah.
So therefore, we want to accelerate the process. Under the amendment of the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act 2015, there are 7 offenses that cannot be expunged. That is murder, manslaughter, treason, rape, armed robbery, kidnapping, possession with the intent to supply of drugs, marijuana, 10 pounds or more, or cocaine or heroin, 2 pounds or more. Because those individuals who commit those offenses from a drug point of view are charged with intent to supply. All other offenses you could dream of or think about on the law books are expungible.
Wow.
But the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act is focusing on young persons, and under that act, a young person is 21 years or under, or first-time offender. You could be 16 to 80.
Yes.
And you could be a first-time offender. And once you would have meet the criteria for expungement of records under the Act, we grant that post-haste.
Okay.
In some countries, it takes a year for that process to take place. I have gone on record to say we will expunge an individual record within 6 months.
Yes.
And we have done that.
Wow.
We have expunged many records to date. And we have only been really operating from last September. And, you know, we only had 5 months before COVID came in and locked us down.
Definitely, yeah.
And therefore that slowed down the work.
The process, yeah.
So it's a very important, it's 7 members. I'm the chairman. I've been asked to be the chairman. And I take it a delight to bring my experience to that process.
Yes, yes.
And the other persons on the committee is the president of the Bar Association, Mr. Parker. We have a Reverend Kenny from the Catholic Diocese. He's the Vicar General. Another Reverend Molly from a church out here near the detention center. A member of Social Services, a member of Rotary, and one member at Freeport.
Okay.
But I chair the meeting once a month, or we meet, depending on the amount of applications that come forward.
Okay.
It's a very important. In fact, I have a high-level meeting tomorrow with the minister and some other persons to see how we could get the work out.
Okay. Yeah, that seems to be
very important.
A very, very good initiative. I would say, that the government would have now implemented.
Yeah.
Do you know why it took so long for government to...
Well, you know, with every progressive government comes the agitation should be from its citizens. Governments will introduce progressive legislation if citizens agitate for it. For example, in my humble opinion, there are 2 more offenses that should be added to the 7 that shouldn't be expunged. Trafficking in guns,
Right.
which kill a lot of people, and trafficking in persons,
Right.
which is a very serious worldwide problem.
Yep. Destroy many lives.
And I have made strong recommendations to the minister to have the cabinet consider those 2 offenses to be added to the 7. because I see them as a very, very serious offenses.
Yes. That's no regard for human life.
No.
Oh, but none whatsoever.
And they're all offensive against human beings. You know. But that, like I say, it has been a wonderful ride as a public servant. Number one, as commissioner, chairman of the police, of the parole system, a member of the Police Service Commission, and now chairman of this Rehabilitation of Offenders Committee. So the work goes on, brother.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it.
You are truly a servant of the country, you know.
Yeah.
It's just giving of yourself and